Today I'm going to be reading A History of the Olympic Games. The Olympic Games began in ancient Greece more than 3,000 years ago. From 700 BC to AD 300s, the Games were held every 4 years in Olympia, Greece. They were in honor of the god Zeus. The first modern Olympics took place in 1896 in Athens, Greece. Almost 250 athletes from 14 nations competed in 43 events. This became the world's most famous sporting competition. The Olympics have been held every 4 years, except during the two world wars. Then, starting in 1994, the Winter Olympic Games were held 2 years before the Summer Olympic Games. The first written records of the Asian Olympic Games date to 776 BC. Corobus, a cook, became the first Olympic champion. He won the only event, a 192-meter, or 693 feet, foot race called the Stade. The arena where the Stade took place later became known as the Stadium. However, many believe that the Games had been going on for many years. Greek mythology told of Hercules, son of Zeus, Hercules, the son of Jupiter to the Romans, who started the Games. By the end of the 600 BCs, the Olympics had become the most famous of all Greek sporting festivals. The ancient Olympics were held every 4 years between August 6th and September 19th. The Games were named for their locations at Olympia, near the western coast of southern Greece. Ancient historians began to measure time by the 4-year period between the Olympic Games. Each 4 years was known as an Olympiad. No women were allowed to participate. After 13 Olympiads, 2 more races joined in the Stade, a 400-meter race and a race that was between 1,500 and 5,000 meters. The pentathlon, 5 contest, was added in 708 BC, which included a foot race, a long jump, throwing the discus and javelin, and a wrestling match. Boxing was added in 688 BC. Chariot racing became an Olympic event 8 years later. Pankration, which combined boxing and wrestling in a violent sport with almost no rules, began in 648 BC. Only men could compete in the Games, and married women were not even allowed to attend the Games. Even though the Roman Empire conquered Greece in the mid-2nd century BC, the Games continued, but the quality and fairness in the contests began to change. One famous example from AD 67 involved Emperor Nero. He entered the chariot race, fell off his chariot, but at the end of the race was announced that he was the winner. About 225 years later, Roman Emperor Theodosius I, as a Christian, felt that festivals honoring the pagan Greek gods must end, so the Olympic Games were banned. They would not be seen again for the next 1,500 years. In the late 1800s, French leaders began to stress the importance of physical education. In November 1892, a meeting in Paris planned for a new Olympic Games where athletes from around the world would compete every 4 years. 2 years later, the International Olympic Committee, or the IOC, was started. It makes the rules for the Olympic Games. 14 nations participated in the first modern Olympics. The first modern Olympics were held in Athens, Greece in 1896. In the opening ceremony, King Georgius I and a crowd of 60,000 spectators welcomed 250 athletes from 14 nations who would compete in 43 events. They included track and field, gymnastics, swimming, wrestling, cycling, tennis, weightlifting, shooting, and fencing. Since then, there have been Olympic Games every 4 years, but no games took place in 1916 during World War I and in 1940 and 1944 during World War II. The official symbol of the modern games is the 5 interlocking colored rings, which represent the continents of North and South America, Asia, Africa, Europe, and Australia. The Olympic flag shows the 5 rings on a white background. It first flew in 1920 Olympics in Antwerp, Belgium. The Olympics truly took off as an international sporting event after 1924, when the 8th Games were held in Paris. Some 3,000 athletes, with more than 100 women among them, from 44 nations competed that year. For the first time, the Games featured a closing ceremony. The Winter Olympic Games were added. The events included figure skating, ice hockey, bobsledding, and the biathlon, cross-country skiing, and rifle shooting. However, starting in 1994, the Winter Olympic Games were held 2 years before the Summer Olympic Games. In 2004, Summer Olympics returned to Athens for the first time in more than a century. Nearly 11,000 athletes from a record 201 countries competed in a gesture that joined both ancient and modern Olympic traditions. The shot put event was held on site at the Classical Games in Olympia. Today I'm going to be reading the article Dealing with Stress and Strong Emotions. Stress is an extreme response to pressures, demands, or threats, either real or imagined. It can be physical, emotional, or psychological. When you are in danger, your breathing and pulse quicken in order to give you a better chance of either running away or defending yourself against the threat. When the threat ends, your body returns to its pre-stress state. However, these same physical reactions can also occur when there is no real danger. Psychological stress can be triggered by our thoughts alone. Just thinking about an unpleasant event is enough to make some people anxious, even when the event is days away. For example, have you ever felt nervous about going to the dentist long before your appointment? Experience plays a large role in determining what you perceive as stressful. For instance, if you were once bitten by a dog, you may feel stressed when dogs are around. In contrast, if you have only had positive experiences with dogs, you may feel happy and calm when surrounded by them. What are some major types of stress? Events in your life that trigger stress are called stressors. These stressors can be either short-term or long-term. A short-term stressor is a situation or event that lasts for a limited time and which causes stress that only lasts as long as the event itself. For example, you might feel a great deal of stress before an important test. However, once that test is over, you'll feel a sense of relief. A long-term stressor is something that causes stress over a long period of time, either constantly or occasionally. For example, a lack of money can cause ongoing worries about getting enough food or losing your home. There are 3 common types of stress. The first is survival stress. When in fear for your safety, your body instinctively prepares to address the threat, either by confronting it or fleeing from it. This is commonly known as the fight or flight response. Your body reacts to this type of stress by sharpening your senses of sight and hearing and increasing your breathing and heart rate. Another type is environmental stress. It is caused by unpleasant things that you run into in daily life. For instance, loud noises, bright louds, crowds, and automobile traffic can all cause or increase stress. Workplace stress is another common environmental stressor. Most often, it is caused by overwork or conflicts with coworkers. Phobias such as fear or heights or insects also lead to environmental stress. The third type of stress is internal stress. This is the type of stress that's caused by thinking about stressful situations that occurred in the past or will take place in the future. For example, many people find that preparing for a job interview or to give a speech to be very stressful. Such stressful feelings can be overwhelming and can interfere with daily life if they last for days or weeks. What are some problems associated with stress? Being stressed is an appropriate reaction to an immediate threat. However, the same reactions that are helpful in the short term can prove harmful over time. Long-term recurring stress, known as chronic stress, can cause both mental and physical health problems. The human body has evolved to deal with short-term stressors of all kinds. It releases compounds such as adrenaline and cortisol in the bloodstream during stressful situations to give you a temporary boost of strength or speed. These compounds are hard on your body, but in short-lived situations, the trade-off is usually worth it. With chronic stress, however, these same reactions can cause health problems, including heart disease, lack of sleep, and stomach aches. Long-term stress tends to weaken your body's defenses against disease. You become more likely to catch colds, the flu, or other illnesses, and you take longer to get over them. Prolonged stress can also lower a person's ability to do well in school or on the job. It can make you much more distracted and tired, which of course makes it harder to focus on your work. What are some strategies for managing stress? The best way to deal with psychological stress is to learn to control your reactions to stressful situations. With practice, you can teach yourself how to remain calm and avoid making bad situations worse. Slow, deep breathing is one way to keep stress from overwhelming you. As soon as you feel yourself getting stressed, pause what you are doing and focus on your breathing and slow down. Doing this will help you feel much more relaxed. Talking about things that are bothering you is another good way to help reduce stress. If you are feeling stressed, seek out a trusted friend or family member who will listen to your concerns. Stress increases when you keep your worries bottled up inside. If you are unable to reduce stress on your own, seek the help of a therapist or school counselor. They are trained to help you understand and deal with stress.